$1.5 billion in the cryptocurrency, sending the price of Bitcoin soaring, and it may soon be accepted as a form of payment for Tesla cars.
Matt King tells us how the huge move by Elon Musk could further launch Bitcoin into the financial mainstream.
I don't really expect we're going to see Starbucks taking it for $5 coffees. It doesn't really play well in that market yet.
But Mastering Bitcoin author Andreas Antonopoulos does expect to see more sellers of luxury goods, real estate, and big-ticket items announce, as Tesla did Monday. They plan to start accepting the cryptocurrency Bitcoin as payment for their merchandise.
It makes international payments, cross-border wire transfer type operations very, very easy, very fast, and very secure for the merchant because you cannot do chargebacks.
Tesla also revealed it purchased $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin, continuing a trend Antonopoulos has observed over the past few months of institutional investors and corporations taking their spare U.S. dollars.
And companies have a lot of spare cash right now.
And converting those dollars to Bitcoin.
Presumably to hedge their inflation risk.
Bitcoin's capped its total number of coins created at 21 million, protecting the cryptocurrency against inflation. Tesla's announcement Monday and some recent tweets from company co-founder Elon Musk sent an already surging Bitcoin to a new all-time high.
When they speak, the market moves.
Antonopoulos sees Bitcoin's recent movement and the similar upward movement of fellow cryptocurrencies as a continuation of the kind of online-driven outsider trading we witnessed when a group of Redditors drove up the price of GameStop by a factor of 20 last month.
They can't shut this one down. Because Bitcoin trades 24 hours a day, it's a global asset that is open to everyone who wants to access it.
I'm Matt King, Fox 5 News.
Things are changing fast in the world of finance. That's right. GameStop seems like a million years ago now.
It really does. Well, that's going to do it for us.
Of Apple this morning with an Appform rating and a price target of $171. Good to see you, Mitch. Thanks so much for joining us. I mean, let's start on that particular topic about whether Apple should start to get it more broadly into the crypto space, Bitcoin in particular, and whether you think it could be an opportunity for them.
Yeah, so I really do believe this is a pretty clear opportunity, in my opinion, because if you look at Square's R&D budget, they spend about $670 million per year. Apple generates cash flow of that amount in less than 2.5 days. So the amount of R&D expense it would take to kind of create a crypto exchange for them, just to be clear, they don't even need to own any crypto assets. They could just create an exchange. And if you run that math, Coinbase right now is going public through a direct listing, right? And they're valued at $50 to $80 billion with only 35 million people as their install base. Apple has a 1.5 billion install base, and they sell 200 million phones per year. So what prevents Apple from utilizing its best asset, which is software, a closed ecosystem, and basically putting people onto a crypto wallet and then making money off the fees? So again, there's been a lot of news here saying that I think they should buy it and all this other stuff. But really the clear message is, why can't they just become an exchange, use the software, and just get fees based on the exchange of crypto assets? I don't think that cryptocurrency is going away anytime soon. And so if they just simply become the exchange, it's a low risk way for them to utilize the most valuable part of their asset, which is security and software.
Do you expect this to happen? Are you reporting on this based on any expectations, anything you've heard from the company, or it's just your analysis of an opportunity that they'd have?
This is just solely my entire analysis. If I was working at Apple as a strategy officer, this is legitimately something I would do, because if you can invest $500 million to potentially create $50 to $80 billion in equity value, that's a lot more compelling to me than trying to compete against an Elon Musk and Tesla, a distributed energy company where you're going to spend $15 to $20 billion just for a maybe. Just for full disclosure here, I do own GBTC and Tesla, so I don't want people to believe that I'm trying to make any sort of nefarious activity here or anything like that. But it just doesn't make any logical sense, right? If you have a 200 million person install base and you can create value out of that with just creating a small exchange, why wouldn't you do it? So far, the feedback from investors I've gotten is that it sounds like it's out of left field, but again, if you don't think that exchanges are going away anytime soon, why wouldn't you do this?
Well, I think two reasons. One, it could open you up to all kinds of new regulatory scrutiny when they're all focused on Bitcoin, becoming a Bitcoin exchange. But also, I mean, you're assuming the big gains if the price continues to go up, which I'm not sure that that's necessarily a universal idea. A lot of people still think this is a massive bubble and it's worth nothing.
So again, they don't even have to own the Bitcoin, right? So that second part, I don't agree with that. What I'm saying is they can basically just be the exchange. let's say you wanted to buy a Bitcoin or a fraction of a Bitcoin, you just go in your Apple Wallet and you click buy. They take a 0.01% fee or something small, right? Then at that point, you're just making money on the exchange. And then in terms of the regulatory part, Tesla's involved now, Square's involved now. You also got MicroStrategy involved, right? PayPal's involved. They did it legally, right, in a closed system. Again, a closed system guarantees that you can't take something off the exchange because they're keeping it within the ecosystem. So why wouldn't they be able to do the same thing?
What do you make of this move, and what do you think is the main reason that Elon Musk is doing it? Is it to prepare for future transactions in the cryptocurrency? Is it to maximize returns for his cash holdings?
Yeah, a couple points that I'll make. And, this actually ties in pretty nicely with the report that we just put out, our Big Ideas report. So first, my colleague Yassine, who's our crypto expert, we've actually done quite a bit of research on this in the past. And, Tesla's not the first company to do this. We've seen this with Square. We've seen this with MicroStrategy. This using Bitcoin as corporate cash, especially if you're doing business in many different countries with many different foreign currencies, this could be instead of dealing with the complication and the risk, that treasury risk. You can instead do this with Bitcoin. So we think it makes sense, certainly from a corporate cash standpoint. And actually, we've done some analysis to say that if 1% of all the cash from the companies in the S&P 500 were to be converted into Bitcoin for corporate treasury purposes, this could actually increase the price a meaningful amount by about $40,000. So Tesla put roughly 8% of their cash into this. So that's meaningful. From the payment perspective, we've done a lot of work on the ride-hailing space. We think this is an opportunity that should be measured in the trillions. So if Tesla is operating a ride-hailing service globally, they'd have to build out that payments function to make it work. So you can imagine that Bitcoin would be useful, again, in that case, as they go into foreign countries and operate there.
So overall, do you welcome this move, or is there an aspect of it that you feel might point to general market toppiness, particularly when you see the size in the move in Tesla and Bitcoin off the back of this announcement, which on the surface doesn't necessarily mean anything immediately?
Yeah, I think this is a trend, from the ARK Invest standpoint, we think this is a trend that you can see happening with more companies. So I would say that this is, part of sort of that longer term view that we've taken on Bitcoin. Which is interesting. At first when we looked at Bitcoin, we weren't necessarily looking at it for institutions from the treasury perspective. We were really looking at it as Bitcoin as its own asset class from an investment perspective. But we've actually found out that this is a really meaningful opportunity for Bitcoin as well.
I get why, Tasha, as supporters of Bitcoin, you would be happy to see this. But what about as shareholders of Tesla? Is this what does Tesla get out of it? You really want to see CEO Elon Musk tweeting about Dogecoin, which is sort of a joke of a cryptocurrency, and now Bitcoin? Is he just looking for publicity?
No, I think this appears to be a very serious move from the company. And again, it's validated by these other firms doing the same thing. Again, I think when people think of Bitcoin, they think that it's, this risky, unfamiliar thing. But if you're looking at it from a treasury perspective, it could actually be, more useful to you than doing all these transactions in foreign currencies. So it can actually reduce that risk. So you could picture actually companies that do this in the early days could benefit from a tailwind from getting in early on Bitcoin. So again, I think this is part of a long-term trend that we're seeing. Innovation has really taken share over the past years across our platform. In 2020 and I think 2021, we're just sort of in the early innings of the adoption for some of these technologies, Bitcoin being included. But again, I think looking at it from the ride-hail perspective, we think Tesla could launch both a human-driven at first, eventually autonomous platform, and they'd want to build out that payment functionality. So, being one of the first companies to invest in Bitcoin, to transact in Bitcoin, actually gives them sort of an advantage to really lay that infrastructure as it becomes increasingly important. And again, as other firms might do it, because we think that there will be sort of that need for the infrastructure to be set up. So they'll be one of the first players to figure this out.
Looking to get out of dollar a little bit and get into $1.5 billion of crypto. And I'm looking at, well, the correlation that will seem pretty prescient, moving almost in lockstep, have been in the blue line, what is Bitcoin versus the US dollar, and Tesla in your white line. There's about 0.95 correlation. Now, I'm all into spurious correlations at times. We've seen, well, Ether and Tesla move almost in lockstep. You've had solar and Tesla, well, solar and Bitcoin move almost in lockstep. You even had avocados and Tesla at one point. So it doesn't always make sense. But this one does seem to serve a purpose for us today, Romain.
All right, love those correlations. Well, let's talk to somebody who maybe knows a little bit about those correlations. Of course, you mentioned Bitcoin, of course, touching that $44,000 mark, record high there. Joining us right now, we want to bring into this conversation our very own Shonali Basak, Bloomberg Wall Street reporter, who's standing by with one of the top voices in the crypto space.
Yes, and that is Mike Novogratz of Galaxy Digital. Thank you, Mike, for joining us. Big day for Bitcoin with Tesla. But, you know, Tesla was a huge catalyst, right? I mean, you've seen a huge spike in the price. More companies are adopting crypto. Fine. But how big of a company and how big of a commitment do you need to see next to create another leg for this currency?
Well, listen, I think what you're missing a little bit is that, you know, Elon Musk has done the best job of almost any CEO at creating shareholder value, right, of creating a stock price that's driven high. One of the things that connect Bitcoin and Tesla and solar stocks and ESG investing is millennials and Gen Z. Young people are buying into the future, and they see cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin and other cryptos, as their currencies. And so Elon is a genius in that he realized, listen to the people. Put some of my balance sheet in there because he's worried about the dollar. Okay, that's a speculative bet. But it's more the messaging of what he's doing that's important, right? Soon to be allowing customers to buy in crypto.
Well,
you're going to see every company in America do the same thing.
Well, it looks like it's not just companies that's thinking about this. You have Mayor Francis Suarez, Miami, thinking about adopting Bitcoin on its balance sheet, according to a tweet he had sent out today. How realistic is something like that, and are more cities likely to think about it?
Listen, there's a war for talent between companies and between cities, right? We've got this tax arbitrage going on where people move out of New York to Miami or to Austin, Texas. You've got cities fighting for the best human capital in the world. I love New York City. I'm a big New Yorker. I think we're going to continue to attract great human capital. But the Miami mayor is smart, right? Hey, we'll put some more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. It doesn't have to be a lot. It's the messaging that matters. And you're seeing the herd here, and it's coming. And I think, you know, Michael Saylor did a conference. Michael Saylor of MicroStrategy did a conference last Thursday, and it was originally for 1,500 CFOs and COOs. There were like 10,000 people that logged on. And he took people through how he did it, how he bought it with his service providers. And the second day, he had guys like me talk about what our companies can do for people. And listen, my own stock price went way up afterwards, right? Like, people were listening. And so it wasn't one or two corporates, it was thousands of corporates logged on to learn about this. And so now you got the biggest, you know, the wealthiest man in the world and one of the biggest stories doing it. You got to think other CFOs and CEOs are going to say, what should we be doing?
But, Mike, you've also got Snoop Dogg. You've also got the Kiss bassist, Gene Simmons. You've got Hertz, as you say, and in the last few weeks, month, Hertz haven't always been a safe bet or indeed the right ride for certain retail investors in particular. How are you seeing the Dogecoin doing so well? Where does it get significant focus from the right people, and where is there a worry?
I think you got to be very worried about Dogecoin. I tweeted last night, I had 10,000 likes within a few hours on my tweet that I think, you know, the frenzy around Dogecoin is bad. I'm surprised that Elon Musk has fun tweeting about it. I think it's a little irresponsible. Bitcoin is built with a purpose to be a store of value, right? There are 114 elements on the periodic table. Only gold has store of value. In crypto, Bitcoin is going to dominate store of value. Other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum have a real purpose. Ethereum is built as this global trust layer that things are going to be built on top of, right? This decentralized supercomputer, if you will. DeFi has a purpose. It's going to, you know, if it could be a derivative trading or a decentralized insurance company or decentralized exchange. And so Dogecoin really doesn't have a purpose. It's a meme coin. It's a lot like GME. The people that buy Dogecoin are going to buy it at these levels are going to lose their money.
Mike, so when we talk about, I guess, the longer term outlook, not only for Bitcoin, but some of the, I guess, what you would call the more established crypto assets out there, there's a lot of talk that this is sort of the replacement for what in the old days would have been people, hoarding gold or hoarding silver. Is there a world in your mind that exists where we can continue to see appreciation in these crypto assets and also see an appreciation in precious metals?
Yeah, listen, I think if we had Chairman Powell here on the split screen, I'd blame him for all of it, right? I mean, we have, and Lagarde today said, we're going to keep the money coming, baby, and we want the governments to keep the money coming. And so when you have this kind of monetary policy, people are going to find new ways to store value. Baseball cards, basketball cards, right? Collectibles are skyrocketing. I mean, you think crypto's, having big moves, you should see what the card market has done. And so you're going to continue to see other ways people hold value, appreciate.
Well,
art, wine.
Well, let's talk about value here for a second then. Where should Bitcoin be in 6 months? Where should gold be in 6 months?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, listen, I originally thought Bitcoin would end the year at 50 or 60,000. Things are happening so much faster than I had predicted, right? The corporate adoption rate, the institutional adoption rate is accelerating beyond certainly what I had thought about. So now I think Bitcoin could end the year at $100,000. Listen, you don't grow forever because it takes a while to digest and new players to get involved. Old players will take profit at one level. And so I think 100,000 is a fine prediction for the end of the year. Gold probably goes back up from here and maybe ends the year at 1,500, 1,600, 1,700. Gold at Bitcoin at 10% of gold is 65,000 or something at that level. And so maybe we get to 15% of gold.
So last one for you here, because we had so much talk about the retail frenzy and people in the hedge fund industry getting burned. Would you go short in this market anymore? Or is this not a market made for that anymore?
Yeah, listen, my rule of thumb is don't go short things that haven't been squeezed. Like your classic, this is a crummy company, I wouldn't short it. But I would wait for these squeezes and I'd count 1,001, 1,002, 1,003, and then short. Like when you take companies without purpose to dumb valuations, those valuations can't sustain time.
Rebecca, along those lines, I mean, given the fact that there is this inflation debate and what that could look like in the second half of the year and what that means, so many implications potentially, we just started the show talking about Bitcoin with Tesla buying Bitcoin. Is this something that you see as taking root among institutional investors, retail investors, this idea of Bitcoin as an inflation hedge?
I think it's a great question. And we just published a big research note on this last week. There are reasons to think Bitcoin may be a good inflation hedge. Obviously, the limited supply, central banks can't print a lot of it and devalue it. So that makes sense. We did look at the last 10 plus years that Bitcoin's been alive and said, okay, how has it done as an inflation hedge so far? We equally looked at periods of time where you have had drawdowns, losses in portfolios, say a 60-40 portfolio. How did gold do to protect you? How did Bitcoin do to protect you? And basically the upshot from those two simple exercises is that Bitcoin today hasn't proven itself yet to be a good inflation hedge or good diversifier. It has the potential to become one, absolutely. But I think today, if you were to buy it for that reason, you would be buying an option for that, not the actual thing. It's more theoretical than realized so far.
Let's bring in Tasha Keeney from ARK Invest. Tesla is one of the top holdings in a few of the firm's funds. ARK
$5 billion into cryptocurrency, becoming the biggest company yet to back Bitcoin. Bloomberg's Matt Miller takes a look at where prices could go from here.
A decade ago, less than a cent. Now, millions of times higher. But what about Bitcoin's future?
Our fundamental work shows that Bitcoin should be worth about $400,000.
That it doesn't have any fundamental value.
People in the know just don't seem to know where it's heading next. Once the province of nerds, libertarians, and drug dealers, today the $1 trillion market is drawing millions from hedge funds and Wall Street giants. Bitcoin isn't the only crypto game in town, but it's the biggest and the best known. Bitcoin's first mega run was in 2017, rising from under $1,000 to almost $20,000, but then it fell off a cliff. It was mostly retail traders back then, as many in finance wouldn't trade Bitcoin in a hazmat suit.
If we have a trader who traded Bitcoin, I'd fire them in a second. For two reasons. It's against our rules, and they're stupid.
But today, it's gaining respectability. You can trade Bitcoin futures, and even JP Morgan thinks it'll hit 6 digits. But the most famous cryptocurrency still has its detractors.
As John Maynard Keynes once said, the market can remain illogical for longer than you or I can remain solvent. And right now, Bitcoin seems to me to be utterly illogical.
The question is, will Bitcoin continue to shoot for the heavens or come crashing back down to earth?
Rather be honest.
My only problem with Matt Miller's report is he goes shoot to the heavens instead of shoot for the moon. He's got to get on Wall Street Bets and Reddit more often. We thank our own Matt Miller. Joining us now, Bloomberg's Katie Greifeld. Katie, on a serious note, does this add legitimacy to cryptos?
That's what the Bitcoin bulls are saying today. And if you look at the price of Bitcoin, I mean, it surged as much as 16% today to a new all-time high. That's what the market's saying as well, because while you have had companies like MicroStrategy and Square have made these kind of investments before, have moved some of their cash balance sheet to Bitcoin, obviously Tesla is by far the biggest company to undertake something like this. They are an S&P 500 member, so it does add a degree of legitimacy to digital assets, which is why you're not just seeing Bitcoin rally today, but across the crypto spectrum, you're seeing all of these coins rise in tandem.
And many saying this certainly isn't going to be the last company to do this. I mean, as you said, already had MicroStrategy, already had Square. RBC today writing about how Apple could get into the crypto space, maybe for using its wallet, maybe becoming some sort of an exchange. What is the next shoe to drop? What is the next thing that everyone's focused on? Is it the building up of diversification in corporate balance sheets?
That's definitely one area, and the RBC note definitely caught some attention on Wall Street. Apple seems to be less likely, is what I'm hearing from analysts I talk to, but it's interesting to see Tesla go through with this because there was an interesting exchange on Twitter between Tesla CEO Elon Musk and MicroStrategy CEO Michael Saylor in December, in which Saylor did urge Elon to make a move like this and said that, you know, if Tesla did this, you'd see a lot of other companies follow. So in terms of what's next for the space, I think you will see a lot of focus on whether we see similar types of moves where treasurers and corporate treasurers just diversify their balance sheets a little bit and add some Bitcoin exposure.
Yeah, I mean, Saylor's been a big evangelist for this, but you do sort of wonder, though, about the utility, if there needs to be a utility. I mean, if this is pretty much just a hedge against the dollar, I guess that makes sense. Musk did actually say he would let people transact in Bitcoin as well, presumably for whatever Tesla they want to buy.
Yeah, the thought that in 2021 you could buy a Tesla with Bitcoin sounds like a joke, would have sounded like a joke, you know, in 2020 or any other year. But apparently that's a possibility now. But you have seen the industry start to pitch Bitcoin more as a digital alternative to gold rather than a means for payment. But I will just note, if you look at the volatility of Bitcoin, that is what gives a lot of treasurers pause. It's moved by an average of 5.2% per day this year. That's Bitcoin's average daily swing. Whereas if you look at the price of gold, it swings 0.8% per day. So totally different assets.
Cross-asset reporter Katie Greifeld all over this story for us. We thank you so much. And do stay tuned for so much more analysis. When it comes to Bitcoin, we're going to be speaking with none other than Mike Novogratz, of course, Galaxy Investment Partners Chairman and CEO at 3:30 p.m. We'll also be talking to Michael Saylor, who we were just name-checking a few times in that conversation as well. But guys, it's not just Bitcoin. And personally, I don't know about you, but I mainly don't go into an investment unless Snoop Dogg has too. Luckily, it was the holy trinity of not just Elon Musk and Snoop Dogg, but also the KISS bassist that says Dogecoin's where it's at, Romain.
Romain, sing the song. Come on, you got this.
No, I'm not going to get that silly. I think my bosses are reeling me in here. Look at that Dogecoin. I mean, how can you not take this seriously?
I mean, I'm just glad that last week I learned how to pronounce it. My former boss told me to pronounce it doggy coin, so joke's on him.
What I do, in all seriousness, I do love the idea that this kind of does expose, I guess, a lot of sort of the financial engineering for what it really is. And look, if you want to believe in something, if you want to ascribe it value, then I mean, Dogecoin is pretty much where it's at. There you go, Elon Musk. Who let the Doge out?
Sing it.
Couldn't have a show
Sing
without a
it.
tweet from Elon Musk. There's a tweet from Gene Simmons.
10.5 billion. 10.5 billion is the market cap now of Dogecoin. Gene Simmons, I mean, phew, I'm so glad that the KISS bassist is in on this too. But, I mean, all joking aside, there is an issue, though. I mean, all joking aside, they say that. Elon Musk has come out and said he has been joking. He said it is jokes he has about Dogecoin when he called it the future currency of
Until it
Earth,
shows up on his balance sheet in Q3 or something.
To the moon, Taylor, to the moon.
To the moon. Not to the heavens.
Can we clip
Matt
that
Miller.
of Taylor and just have that as like the intro for all of our shows?
Every cold open starts with that.
It's just when the market starts to fall, it's going to be, I don't know where we go from that.